India has now taken fresh action against the terrorist state of Pakistan. India has called out Pakistan at the United Nations Security Council. India's envoy to the UN has said that India has experienced decades of Pakistani-sponsored terror, and for such a nation to participate in a discussion on the protection of civilians is an affront to the international community. India has highlighted that the Pakistani army shelled border villages, killing more than 20 civilians and injuring more than 80, including the intentional targeting of places of worship. Listen in to India's pitch at the United Nations Security Council.
Mr. President, I am constrained to respond to the baseless allegations of the representative of Pakistan on a number of issues. First, India has experienced decades of Pakistani-sponsored terrorist attacks across our borders. This has ranged from the horrific 26/11 attack on the city of Mumbai to the barbaric mass murder of innocent tourists in Pahalgam in April 2025. The victims of Pakistani terrorism have been predominantly civilians, since its objective has been to attack our prosperity, our progress, and our morale. For such a nation to even participate in a discussion on protection of civilians is an affront to the international community. Second, Pakistan has repeatedly used a civilian cover to advance the cause of terrorism. We just recently saw senior government, police, and military officials pay respects at the funeral of noted terrorists targeted by Operation Sindoor. A nation that makes no distinction between terrorists and civilians has no credentials to speak about protecting civilians. Third, earlier this month, the Pakistani army deliberately shelled our border villages, killing more than 20 civilians and injuring more than 80. There was intentional targeting of places of worship, including gurudwaras, temples and convents, as well as medical facilities. To preach at this body after such behavior is grossly hypocritical.
And Siddhant continues to be with us on the broadcast. So Siddhant, strong words coming in from India's envoy at the United Nations, calling out Pakistan before the UN Security Council. India maintaining that diplomatic offensive against Pakistan, even as a united front, all parties also coming together to take on Pakistan on the international stage, and also that message going to the world powers about Pakistan's DNA of supporting cross-border terror.
Well, that's right, Ayushman. In fact, we were listening to Indian envoy to United Nations, P. Harish. In fact, he highlighted that how Pakistani army deliberately shelled Indian border villages, killing more than 20 civilians and injuring more than 80 others. There was a intentional targeting of places of worship, including gurudwaras and temples. Perhaps if you remember, Ayushman, this is exactly what Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said on the very first day of his briefing, that how Pakistan is targeting religious sites. In fact, P. Harish also went on to say that I am constrained to respond to the baseless allegations of the representative of Pakistan on the number of issues. First, India has experienced decades of Pakistani-sponsored terrorist attacks across our borders. For such a nation to even participate in a discussion on the protection of civilians is an affront to the international community. A nation that makes no distinction between terrorists and civilians has no credentials to speak about protecting civilians. Earlier this month, the Pakistani army deliberated shelled our border villages. In fact, this is a very strong word coming from P. Harish, who is an India's envoy to United Nations, and in fact he was speaking at United Nations Security Council. Perhaps he was speaking on the issue of protection of civilians, and as we have spoken before also, Ayushman, that how UNSC is one body which perhaps is of paramount importance for India at this point in time. In fact, last week, Indian team briefed UNSC's 1267 Sanctions Committee about the involvement of TRF, that how TRF is an offshoot of Lashkar-e-Taiba and has links with Pakistan's ISI and Pakistani army. In fact, the evidence have also been handed over to the Sanctions Committee. So UNSC is also a body where Pakistan in this tenure is a non-permanent member of UNSC. So for any resolution, perhaps, or to keep the UNSC committee, apprised of India's position time and again is perhaps a top priority for the Indian side. And since the ambassador was speaking about the protection of civilians, he also highlighted that how the civilians were targeted by Pakistan in this month, and also that how it is kind of an irony that a country like Pakistan is being allowed to speak and take part in such a debate at UNSC. So again, a strong word coming from the Indian government. And as I said, that this is all a part of outreach, perhaps exposing Pakistan on each and every multilateral forum. Perhaps now India has decided that on one end, where multi-party delegations are going and doing the outreach with the parliamentarians, politicians, and foreign ministry of those countries. On the other end, the Indian officials, Indian diplomats, perhaps posted in various embassies, using the various multilateral forums, will be exposing Pakistan on each and every occasion.
Right, and at the same time, Siddhant, this also becomes effective because Pakistan's entire disinformation tactic has fallen flat, given the fact that several members of the Pakistani Assembly and top Pakistani lawmakers are questioning their own government, given the fact that India was able to penetrate so deep into Pakistani territory and cripple its military infrastructure as well as the terror bases. So calling out Pakistan on the international stage, maintaining the credibility of Operation Sindoor, the necessity of Operation Sindoor against Pak terror is something that's essential as that multi-party delegation also rolls out.
Well, absolutely. Within the Pakistani people, and in fact, they have now started questioning, the things that their government deliberately have kept under the wraps. Now with each passing day in an interview or perhaps through some other means, those details are coming out. And, this could cause a lot of anger as far as the people in Pakistan, they are concerned, because, they have been told a very different picture. They have been shown a very different picture, that Pakistan won against the Indian forces, and it was India which reached out to Pakistan for a ceasefire. Pakistanis had hit India hard, etc., were told to them. But now, as you rightly pointed out, with each passing day, the evidence, material, even the statements from their own politicians, telling truth perhaps could become a new nightmare for newly appointed Field Marshal Asim Munir, because all he has done so far is putting all his energies and resources of DGISPR to build a narrative in his favor, in Army's favor, and perhaps that is what everybody was doing in Pakistan. But now suddenly people have started realizing that it's India which has won, and India has hit deep inside Pakistan. It's Rawalpindi, it's Lahore. All these key military installations were hit by India. So now these details have started coming out, and the people of Pakistan have also started realizing it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Siddhant, for joining us on the broadcast with that piece of breaking news.